Whenever my wife asks me to tell her a story, I get the same sinking feeling. Me? Tell a story? About what? I don't know any stories. I'm racking my brain for every creative narrative I've ever heard, coming up with one kind of super story, maybe involving fire-breathing dragons and faraway castles. And in my silence, I start to panic a little bit. I feel the pressure mounting. I mean, certainly the success or failure of this day, if not my entire marriage, hinges upon my ability to tell a good story right now. So, of course, when I do finally start to speak, I can't get out more than 2 or 3 jumbled sentences. I don't know where to begin. I can't get my events into a sensible order. I don't even have a main character. Everything is vague and hopeless. The truth is, that's just not how I tell my stories. I'm a jazz drummer, and I tell my stories through my drums and my music. But I have realized something. We all face those fears at some point. Everyone in this room has probably been told at some point, think outside the box, be creative, give me your 3 best ideas on my table by 11 a.m., or give a presentation to your team. You might feel as though your job is on the line, and overwhelming paralysis can set in. As a jazz educator, I see this all the time in my students. But I've come up with some ways to help them get started on the track to successful improvisation. And lately I've been thinking that maybe some of these ideas could be used to help people in other disciplines overcome their own creative challenges. Now, as a jazz musician, one thing that we do is we live and breathe being creative with our music. It takes a lot of practice. And so if you want to be quicker at thinking on your feet, you want to be in the habit of coming up with good ideas, then you really have to put yourself in that situation on a regular basis, because that's what we do. So let's imagine for a second that we're in my lesson studio, and it's about a 10-foot by 10-foot box. No windows, wall-to-wall carpeting on every surface. I've got a drum set right here like this one, and then about 2 feet away, I've got another drum set facing me. Basically, there's nowhere to hide. And today, I've got a new student. So what do I do with this poor soul, first thing? Well, I say, play me a solo. Well, I don't know what to play, is the response I usually hear. Well, I just want to hear what you can do, so just make up a little something. It doesn't have to be very long. Well, what usually follows is a cacophony of sound that's about as unsuccessful as my story I was telling my wife about dragons and castles. But the truth is, just as I could learn to tell my wife a better story, these students can learn how to improvise a better solo. How do we do it? Well, let's get started. So one of the first things that's so simple but so true is that people start talking without thinking about what it is they want to say. And the same is true in music. People start playing solos without really thinking about what it is that they want to say. You know, it's a very common tactic in jazz education to give people solutions that work. For example, play these notes over this chord and it will work. Or play this rhythm here and it will sound good. The problem with that is that it's not creative. You're not giving the student an opportunity to express himself. You're just spoon-feeding him or her the information. Instead, I like to focus on keywords. Now, for example, maybe I would say to my student, I'd like you to start a solo at this tempo. And I want you to think about the word low. Or maybe, if they're a little bit more talented, the word could be a little more abstract, like thunder. The truth is, these words mean something similar to everybody in this room. But on an individual level, you're going to have your own personal interpretation of what that word means to you. And it's enough to focus your energy so that you have a clear starting point to your solo and then can continue in a positive direction. But just because we get off on a good start doesn't mean that we're out of the woods yet. We have to continue to make good choices. The most overwhelming aspect of trying to be creative is the feeling that you have endless possibilities. Limitation is one of the most important aspects of being a good improviser. You just can't say everything you want to say in one story, and you can't put everything you know into one solo. And it's so tempting. When I sit down at the drums, I want to hit everything in front of me, and so does everybody else. That's what you want to do. But you need to learn to be a good editor. You need to learn how to make good choices. We do that in my lessons through extreme limitation. For example, I'll say to my student, for the next 2 weeks, you can only take solos on the hi-hats. Oh, on the hi-hats only? Yeah, because when you're done with that after 2 weeks, you're going to be really good at it. And you will have practiced the routine of limiting yourself so that when you do have all these other options in front of you, you still know how to edit and make good choices. So let's say our solos are going along at a pretty good level. What do we really want to do as jazz musicians? Well, it's not really a music that was intended to be performed solo. We want to work with other musicians. We want to collaborate. That is the real joy in this music. And I just want you to think about this for a second, because if there's one takeaway from my talk that I think is the most important, it's that jazz musicians love to work together to collaborate towards a common goal. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to lie to you. All jazz musicians have a healthy ego. We do. We like expressing ourselves. However, the best jazz musicians know how to put that ego to the side for the betterment of the entire group. In fact, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an organization better than the jazz ensemble at allowing the individual to shine while still promoting the interest of the group as a whole. I think everyone who's ever worked in some kind of corporate team environment could take a lesson from that. We all get our individual chance to shine, and in that moment, the rest of us are working our hardest to make that person sound the best that he or she can. And I expect the same when it comes my time to solo, that I am going to be supported by my fellow musicians. And that fosters trust. And the trust that we share is the most powerful agent of creativity because it enables us to take risks. And just like in life, the exciting moments in life come from taking risks. The most exciting moments in this music come when we take a risk and we say, well, maybe I'm not quite sure if I can go for this. I'm on the edge of my seat, but you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. And when the result is really good, it pays off with an exciting, passionate moment in the music. So at this point, to help me with my own creative task here today, I'm going to take my own advice and bring up some wonderful musicians to join me. And as we improvise, I hope that you will hear in our music clear, compelling starts to our improvisations, that you will hear the freedom that comes from actually limiting our choices, and finally, the passion we feel as we trust one another to take chances and risks in our music. Please welcome to the stage Kim Cass on bass, Jeffrey Burr on guitar. Together we're going to play Together we are going to play Thelonious Monk's Rhythming.
you.